Hello, everyone, and welcome back to For St. Pete's Sake. This is the only podcast where we deep dive into everything political here in Pinellas County, the state of Florida, and beyond. I am your host, Christian Hotchkiss, and I am joined, as always, by my amazing co-host, Laura. Laura, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, Christian. We had a very busy weekend over the weekend with St. Pete Pride, so I've been taking it very chill the past few days just to recover. It was a hot one out there. It was a very, very hot one out there, and I have to, give my online and public apologies to Christian for having to bail out on the second half of Sunday because I was just too hot and couldn't take it anymore. So my big hearts to Christian for helping out close everything down at the street fair on Sunday.
Sunday was a little crazy. Sunday was a little crazy with that rain and that storm that came through. Our tent blew over at one point, but you know what? No one got hurt. So everyone was able to get cleaned up and we were able to get everything inside. So we were good. We were good there. So we're very, very grateful, but it was a very good weekend. And I'm very excited today because we have an
Yes.
amazing host, amazing guest that I'm super excited to talk to. We have Commissioner Renee Flowers from the Pinellas County Commission. Renee, how are you today?
I am absolutely wonderful. It's been a busy day, but that's a good thing because that means that people are engaged. They're excited about getting involved. Maybe some who were not involved previously. But, it just tells me that I'm doing the job I need to do.
Amazing.
Absolutely, and you're doing it well.
So
You're
you've
doing it
been
well
an
every
elected
day.
official for some time here in St. Pete. You started off on the school board, and now you're the county commissioner. So I guess we want to start with, if you want to start with just more of a little introduction to yourself, how long you've been here in St. Pete, what got you motivated to start running as a public official, just a little background.
Actually, I started out as a city council member in 1999, and I took office on April Fool's Day, April 1st.
Oh, wow.
So I had a chance to serve for two 4-year terms on the St. Petersburg City Council. And actually, my term was extended for about 9 months because we placed a request for a change in the charter to align our election dates to go along with other municipalities. And so it gave us that little extended time. And then you are correct. I served on the Pinellas County School Board for two 4-year terms. And I am now technically in my third term on the county commission.
Okay.
So, born and raised here in St. Petersburg, grew up in Jordan Park. I was born at Mercy Hospital, which was an all African American hospital, of course.
Hmm.
Um, I enjoyed all of the strong history that I received by growing up in Jordan Park. Sometimes people say a lot of negative things about housing communities, low income housing communities. I grew up with both of my parents, my mother and my father, in the home. I'm the baby of 12. All of us either went to college or to the military. So, that stigmatism that some people try to attach to individuals who grow up in public housing can be dispelled because there are a number of wonderful, energetic, historic, well deserved, well meaning, hard fighting people that grow up in housing communities. And that may be why they fight so hard because they had to struggle and they know what it's like to want more, not just for themselves, but for others. I attended public schools. Um, my parents' home, our kitchen was the staging area when there were riots at Dixie Hollins High School. My older sisters and brothers went there, and so my parents had two cars, and they figured out the shuffling of getting kids back and forth safely, making sure that they weren't harmed until things could cool down because Kansas City was a sundown town. You were not to be African American caught after the sun went down, and even when the sun was up. So I went to Westgate Elementary. I went to Azalea Middle School and graduated from Dix Highlands High School. Went on to college. I have my Bachelor of Arts degree in Organizational Studies from Eckerd College. I have an Associate of Arts degree in Criminal Justice from Tallahassee Community College. I have a Master's of Arts degree in Public Administration from Capella University. And I just received my doctorate in public administration in September of last year. So I've lived here all my life. I bought my home in South St. Pete. I raised my children in South St. Pete. They all went to public schools. Um, and so it's just been a place that I love to call home, and a place that I encourage other people to come to and live, and to unite, not allow borders or streets or avenues to separate you from other parts of the community, but get to know your neighbors, get to know them as people, not as what someone may have told you,
Right.
because there's culture all around us. And I just think St. Pete is one of the coolest places to live. So,
I totally agree. I moved down here about it. Oh, it's been 3 years. It's been over 3 years now since I've been here. I moved from Ohio and Toledo, Ohio, and
oh,
it was, I love my little Union town. We're definitely a little blue spot in Ohio, similar to how St. Pete is here, but you can't beat the culture and the history that is in St. Pete. You really can't. And it's so amazing to see, and yeah, and just walk around, and it's in just a more diverse place than I had grown up in, so that's really cool. Yeah, and congratulations on your doctorate. That is amazing.
yeah, I
We
thought I was
love to
going to
hear
need
that.
resuscitation. I thought I was going to need to be admitted into the ICU.
Oh!
I quit like I don't know how many times,
Yeah,
but then I get back up and keep going, and then I'd say, you know what, I've paid too much money. I've come too far. I got to keep going. I got to keep going.
exactly.
And so I graduated with honors,
Amazing.
magna cum laude. Yeah. So
Woo!
I was excited about that. Yep. And but now, just putting those things and combining them to continue to work for my community.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love that. I went back and got my master's degree when the pandemic hit. So, I just love that message of like education never stops. You can always keep doing it whenever it's not just for, the kids that are going straight from high school to college to masters to doctorates. Like you can do it whenever
Right.
you want. I love that.
Right. Right.
Yes, exactly. And we always want to make sure that people know that school it's important. So please continue to go, but
Mhm.
also go to trade school. Pick a trade if you would like.
Yes.
If you don't feel like college for you,
Yes.
go to trade school. They're just as
Oh, yeah.
important.
Mhm.
That is a hill I will die on.
When was the last time
um,
you had to pay for a HVAC person to come out and see about your AC unit
Right.
after hours, or a
mhm,
plumber
Right.
because you had
mhm.
plumbing issues, whether it's after hours or before hours, building homes, construction
Mm-hmm.
maintenance, um, nursing, healthcare, a medical assistant.
Yeah,
It is
exactly.
the field is wide open. You can own your own business. You can work for someone if you want for a while. You can venture off into other areas. So you're right, Christian. It's technical trades. I
Oh, yeah.
encourage our youth in school. Full transparency, my daughter, Kaisha Robinson, is the manager for the Office for Workforce Innovation with Pinellas Technical
Oh,
College.
cool.
And so her department works with the individuals who are in the technical trade lanes in our high schools. So,
Oh,
like St. Pete High has a construction trades piece, Pinellas Park has the EMT firefighter piece. And so some of her staff will go out, they work with those students, mentoring them, making sure that the programming is correct. And then certainly venturing them over to Pinellas Technical College. They're able to give them scholarships. So many of them graduate from high school with a certification, a trade, as well as their high school diploma.
that's amazing.
Yes,
Incredible.
That's so
yes,
That
amazing.
really is incredible. I love to hear
yeah.
that
So
and the
Pinellas
passion
County
behind
Schools
it.
got it right in that space.
Yeah, right? Love that.
Good, 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 good.
Mhm.
All right. Well, affordable housing and gentrification are major concerns across the
Yes,
region. It's a
yes,
crazy time right now. So, I know on the county commission you can only do so much, but what policies or programs are you championing to make sure long-term residents aren't pushed out of our neighborhoods?
exactly. Well, some of you may remember that Pinellas County did something that, in my opinion, was groundbreaking, and that was designating a portion of the penny. That's that one extra cent. So, our tax is only 6 cents.
Okay.
And so when the community voted on that referendum for the penny for Pinellas or one more penny, that entire penny goes towards a separate pot of money. Within that, over 40% of the funds that are brought in go strictly to affordable, and I'm saying attainable housing,
Okay.
because now what is affordable or what I can afford on my salary is not necessarily in line with maybe someone else
Mhm.
who makes a lower salary. So I like to say attainable. What is your reach? But over 40% of those funds go towards partnering with contractors and developers. And so as a result, you've seen some of the projects we've been able to get out of the ground, partnering with the St. Petersburg Housing Authority to build those 61 units for seniors. That's called the Legacy building on the old Ed White site. That's going to be 61 units of senior housing. Plus, there will be Evera Health there on spot, on site, so that seniors can get health care.
Mm.
Building the Skyway Lofts, those two huge developments you see on 34th Street and 38th Avenue South. Those were the first phase. 146 units were already rented before they even finished construction. So we know that there is a great need. Doing infill, working with Habitat for Humanity, who has now gone beyond just single family homes and provided that outreach into townhomes so that you can get many more units onto a particular parcel of land. Partnering with developers for market rate housing projects where we pay them a certain amount to build a percentage of their units affordable. So when you go there, you don't know who's paying $3,000 for rent
Mhm.
versus who's paying $800 for
Yeah,
rent. And that's the way it should be,
exactly.
because that brings a level of respect. And you feel good about the fact that I'm going to live in a place that is safe, that's secure, that it's clean, that's affordable, and no one knows the difference between who's paying what. Of course, I have a newfound love for tiny homes. I was just at the Florida Association of Counties conference. I did a whole reel about that. So please visit my Facebook page. We had a tiny home there because I want people to remove that stigmatism of you got to have a 1,200, 2,000 square foot home. Depends on what your needs are. We have seniors who they don't want a huge house anymore. They
Mhm.
want to be able to take care of something that's nominal, but they want it big enough where they can kind of move around. You have single family moms who they can't afford a huge home, but they could afford a tiny home. So the tiny home that I toured and gave you all a tour of was 490 square feet, a one bedroom. And the company that is doing that, it's selling for 89,000, a little over
Okay.
$89,000. And that included in that is the transport costs. So they're working with two companies here locally. Well, actually, one's in Pasco County. But so that way there's someone close where that home can get to you. But I did a reel on it. It comes with a full size refrigerator, stove, convection oven. It has a living room. It has a porch, central heat and air unit. It has the metal roofing. It can withstand up to 140-mile-per-hour wind. So,
Mm.
none of us will probably withstand a level 5, but they're trying really hard. And so when I was inside of that unit, I said, "What is this, 900 square feet?" He said, "No, it's 490." I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And so I was like, I got to show this to people because individuals need to see what is available. I think doing a tiny home community like what they did in Atlanta, there were
Mhm.
some investors that did a whole tiny home community. So it looks like an HOA. When you go up into the drive and pull around, and it's veterans and it's
Mm.
seniors. And then there's a whole
That's so
separate
smart.
section for families. But it's what they can afford. And it could be your starter, okay?
Right.
And maybe your income will allow you to move up, and then someone else can purchase that unit. But $89,000
For all that.
for
Yeah.
yes. So we'll be doing some more talking around that. We're certainly trying to bring that here. I've been
Yeah.
speaking with developers about innovative and creative ways because your costs are in how long it takes to construct the home.
Mhm.
The next highest cost is your land.
Mhm.
It's your land, and land is scarce
Right.
here. And so if we can bring something in that's prefabbed,
Right.
you've just kind of cut that down tremendously. So when you look at homes now that are going for 600,000 plus versus 89,000,
Right.
that's more attractive,
Right.
certainly within the realm of affordability. Takes care of a need that we have. It may not be for everybody.
Right.
May not be for everybody, but it certainly is an alternative.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's really I know I did see that reel for like a minute. I didn't get a chance to see the whole thing, but I was like I saw the tiny houses and I was like that is so interesting. I'm going to
Yeah,
go
go back
back and
and look
watch the
at
whole
it. It's,
thing. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. And their energy, all of the appliances are the Blue Star energy efficiency.
Oh,
So
perfect.
they're all energy efficient.
Awesome. So what do you at the you having served at both the city and the county levels, what do you think are the biggest opportunities or the biggest threats to the next 5 years for us here in Pinellas County?
It's definitely going to be property
Okay.
tax, and homeowners insurance.
Yeah.
The sad thing about it is that our legislature could have done something about homeowners insurance years ago,
Hmm.
and they chose not to. And then when the bottom started falling out, they fell back to citizens and they overburdened
Okay.
citizens. And so then citizens said, after we had that one storm that came through, we're going to drop some people. So if your home is 50 years older or greater, we're dropping you. I was one of those
Oh,
people
wow.
that citizen dropped.
Hmm.
And I never placed a claim on my home. My home was built in 1947. I have a masonry block home
Oh.
with the steel rods
Oh.
through the masonry block. I have a very sturdy home. That's not to say that a five coming through won't do
Oh,
something to it,
right.
but I have a very sturdy home and I got dropped. So I had to go to another company that charged me 3 times the amount of what I was paying before. I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
Can you imagine those individuals who were in the way of a hurricane in South Florida, Punta Gorda, Fort Lauderdale, Fort Pierce, all of those individuals? If you could only imagine their flood insurance plus their homeowners.
Right.
But the state never did anything about it. They kept pushing it off and pushing it off. Other companies left our state because of the number of claims. And so that continues to haunt us. So much so that right now, because of the influx of people moving in during COVID,
Mhm.
if you lived in um, Utah, Arizona, California, New York, and your starting salary up there could be anywhere from around 100 to
Right.
$150,000, and you're paying $4 or $5,000 for a studio. Yes, when you come here and you can get a 1 bedroom or a 2 bedroom for 1,800, 1,850, it's like fabulous. But we don't make that kind of money down
Right.
here. And so as a result of them coming in and that demand or the quantity or the availability of housing was being eaten away at, the prices started to surge. So on top of those prices, you want to add your property insurance
Hmm.
and then your property tax, I'm sorry. And on top of that, you want to add all the other things that you don't get if you're renting property, because you don't get to claim that homestead exemption. And so prices have skyrocketed farther than what our hourly wages are here.
Yeah.
And as a result, yeah, we have people coming in, but they're not from here. So, my daughter was blessed and she lucked out and got a really good deal on a home. And I was like, jump on it. And she did. But there are so many others who come back here from college, they can't afford to stay here. So they migrate over to Riverview, they migrate
Hmm.
over to Apollo Beach, they go to Pasco, Polk, Hernando Hardy. Well, now those communities are starting to feel the creep because investors, contractors, developers never see a patch of green grass that they don't like.
Exactly.
And so now what we have experienced and are in the crux of, those areas are beginning to feel it.
Hmm.
And so those are two things that are critical for our community. And the governor wants to do away with property tax. Okay. 41% of Pinellas County's budget goes towards the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
That's ad valorem, that's property tax. We have juvenile welfare board that does a fabulous job of providing those support services for families. We have early learning coalition. We have area agency on aging, Pinellas and Pasco. We have all of those soft programs that help people just stay alive.
Yeah.
Property taxes help pay for those.
Right.
Hmm.
Property taxes is how our public school systems are paid for.
Right.
Hmm.
That's an ad valorem.
That's
Yeah. So
yeah, like between no income tax acts and no property tax, like how does he think anything's gonna get paid for?
Well, one thing is, we have the 6 cent sales tax. So one of the things I heard was that he was floating. I don't know this to be true. I did not get this from
Yeah.
him, but floating to increase the sales tax to 13%.
Oh
Here's
my
the issue with that.
gosh. It's
If
regressive.
we already exactly, we had to fight for the fight for $15 an hour.
Right.
Okay, we had to
Hmm.
fight for that. And that still does not provide what's needed to live here
No.
in Pinellas County. It's much better than what the federal minimum wage
Right.
is. Um, However, if we don't have those support programs, but I'm telling you to go to the store and for those items that are taxable,
Hmm.
you have an increased cost.
Right.
Either way, people are still going to suffer because now you can't afford to go grocery shopping.
Right.
You can't afford the soap. You can't afford the dish detergent. You can't afford the things, toilet paper, paper towels, anything that is taxable.
Right.
There are some foods that are taxable. Cooked foods are considered taxable. And if you heard recently with SNAP benefits, they passed a law on the federal level that you cannot purchase any sugary items, anything with sugar in them. Well, when you are shopping, you're looking for the least expensive things you could
Right.
buy to go the farthest. Unfortunately, orange juice costs more than high C.
Wow.
So what do? You get a gallon of high
Right.
C for a drink for your kids. Or you buy the packets of Kool-Aid and sugar for your kids. Well, now you can't do that, but you can't afford to pay for the orange juice either
Right.
because it's $7. So
Right.
Mm.
I just think that sometimes people don't think far enough into that. And maybe it's because I grew up where my parents and other parents too had to make decisions, and your meal consisted of bread, a meat, a vegetable, and a
Yep.
starch, something to hold you so that you would feel full. It may not have been what you wanted, but it filled you up. And now,
Hmm.
with all of the things that they're doing, stripping away the ability for kids to have free
Mhm.
lunches, for some families, that was a relief because they could get lunch at school, and that way, all they had to do at home was dinner so they could make
Yeah.
it. What about
Hmm.
our seniors who get meals delivered? And those programs, that funding has been cut. So now we have seniors, and I serve on the board for Area Agency on Aging, Pinellas and Pasco, where we used to be able to deliver 5 meals for you to have each day of the week, and then we could leave the two with you for the weekend. We're down to two. We will only be able to deliver 2 meals. What is
Wow.
that senior going to do for food?
Yeah.
And they can't go to the food banks because guess what? Funding's been cut for that as well.
Yeah. It's really just
So
leaving people with nowhere nowhere to turn.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. And you definitely see
Heartless,
the,
heartless.
Extremely.
yeah, exactly. And you can absolutely see, like, I grew up in Brooksville, which is in Hernando County. And when I grew up, you could drive 15 miles, 20 miles without seeing a single house. And now you can't drive a mile without seeing a subdivision or something like that. So it's definitely,
Right.
it, it, it's, yeah. And I've said it before. My mother, who is a nurse, who's been a nurse for 20 years, is struggling. She's been a nurse for 20 years. She works at a very good hospital. She gets paid a good amount of money, and she is struggling. So it's, not just us, it's everybody across the board
Yeah.
that's absolutely struggling at this. So,
Provided a graph to my colleagues while we were having our budget workshop about 2 weeks ago. If you are earning $72,000 a year, you are now considered low income.
mhm,
I can remember when if you were earning $35,000 a year,
Yep.
you were the bomb.
mhm,
$50,000, so 70,000. Getting out of college or whatever the case may
Mhm.
be, it was good money, decent, you could live off of it. But to think that now, if you earn up to 112,000, you are just moderate income.
Yep.
yeah,
And it's not one income or two income, it's income per household.
Right.
yeah,
So can you imagine those people who are only making $15 an hour? That's about $36,000 a year.
Right.
yep. It's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. I hope that more people in 2026, more Floridians will realize what's going on and step up and hopefully make a change about it. So,
Me too.
um, With speaking of Florida, with Florida's political climate growing more and more hostile towards public education, LGBTQ plus rights, and reproductive freedom, how do you navigate working within a state government that often seems at odds with the values of your constituents?
I tell you, it's difficult. Knowing that the Republican Party has a super majority in Tallahassee, knowing that based on the last elections, even though I know a lot of people are regretting their vote, we lost both houses in DC. And so it makes it very hard. But I will say this, When I bring things forward at a county commission meeting, I do my research first. I try to weigh out the arguments, not how am I going to sell this, but how will I be able to answer any question that they may ask that would give them a reason to say no.
Yeah.
And so when we were talking about the tourist development funds for the gas plant district, my communication was around economic impact for the community. Because the more people you have working, the fewer people you have on public assistance, right?
Exactly.
So it's answering that question. When we are talking about preservation of property, it's not just about, I want to save birds and turtles and gopher turtles and foxes and things like that. But what does it mean when it comes to climate issues here, particularly when we have just experienced two massive, incredible hurricanes back to back, and Count Debbie ahead of that one that tore up our community, and we are still trying to rebuild from that, and we are about to enter hurricane season again. How do I frame my conversation around that? It is not just persons of color, that persons from the LGBTQ plus community who are having a difficult time with housing or jobs.
Right.
It's their children too. And so framing it to be able to put it in your backyard. So I've been somewhat productive because I've been able to communicate with persons who don't share the same party affiliation, but to show them how it does impact you and affect you. Even if you don't want to admit it, it does. And encouraging people to either come to my meetings and be out there in the audience and speak up, or we still have it where you can call in. You can call in through Zoom and you can still share your opinions and whatnot through Zoom, and they can hear what you're saying. You can email. We have people that come up when they want something from up north in our northern part of the county. When I'm telling you 200 plus emails, petitions, we get all of that. And I read them and I highlight certain things in them. And I have my aide put them in a binder for me. I have them right there so that when that item comes up, I'm showing them, look, I got your stuff. I read it. I have questions. Let me ask you this. So I tell people, yes, you elected me, and I'm so thankful and grateful. Please don't ever think that I don't appreciate the trust my community has put in me to service the city and now on a larger level with the county. But I can't do it alone. It can't just be my voice. I need others to share their insight, their opinion, their lived experiences. Share that so that it's not just, well, that's just Renee. It's, or I'm not just saying your name, but people are showing up. And so using those methods have helped us beat some things back, even in Tallahassee. Um, they've not liked it. There was a move to move Brad out from PSTA and to totally revamp PSTA and basically give the authority, if you will, to the state. And I served on that board, and I fought that. I fought that, and I could not have done it without the support of the Republican state senators and House members, because it's not enough of the Democrats up there to do it. I just shared with them, here is what public transportation does for us. Here is how we use this as a selling point for larger corporations to come here to our community and be able to afford to pay people these wages that we need in order to live and stay here. This is why we need to make sure that the ability to manage and operate public transportation systems needs to remain local. And we didn't have that come back this year.
Okay.
So, it can work. You just have to be willing to have those conversations and, yeah, get a little strong in my voice sometimes. Because, if I raise my voice, I'm the angry Black woman. If I'm docile, I'm not fighting hard enough. So it's being mindful and respectful, but making sure that people understand I mean exactly what I said. So it's a delicate balance, but I just take each issue at a time. I don't compound them, one issue at a time. Um, and you'll have people who they'll always have an argument in opposition.
Right.
And when I sense that, I just say, thank you so much for your time, because you're never going to change their mind. They will never move to the left or to the right. They will never move into the middle. And so I can't waste my time on that type of conversation. I then need to focus somewhere else.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
And I think that's so like that is a really good point that you made. It's like you just know going in that people are not going to have they're coming at an issue from their perspective, and so you have to just like kind of see what their perspectives is going to be so that you can counter it and be like, okay, well, here are the things that are important from your eyesight. My eyesight, these things
Right.
are still important as well, but like you're zoned in on it over here, so let me get you into your line of sight. That's really smart, and I know we really appreciate the all the hard work that you do, because we know that Pinellas is a really like Pinellas and St. Pete are a beacon of light, and a lot of the places for a lot of people in the
Thank
state of
you.
Florida, especially like after we said after this weekend, after St. Pete Pride, talked to so many
Right.
people who are from out of town, and just or who it was their first Pride. They were nervous before in the state of Florida, but that had such a good vibe from the city of St. Pete and county of Pinellas to come out. And so I just it's we're a happy little bubble over here, in parts thanks to representatives like you, for sure.
And let me give a shout out to you guys as well. If you remember when we had that concern come up about LGBTQ plus books in the library up in East Lake and Palm Harbor, and the individuals that were calling in, they were talking about like 1 and 2 year olds and newborns who, first of all, can't
Right.
read unless they are a prodigy, and number two, the book was up on the shelf, so they had to be picked up by their parent to even see it. It wasn't, in areas where they said it was. And it just, so anyway, thank you. I want to say thank you, because so many people from the community, you all wrote emails, letters, you made phone calls to commissioners. I mean, you did your job. You did your job. And so, it works both ways. I need to say thank you to you guys for that, because, you know, they were saying, well, we need to remove those materials. Well, so are you telling me the taxpayers who are from the LGBTQ plus community don't deserve to have things in a library that they are interested in, that they want, because they pay taxes too? They don't pay like in a separate pot, you
Right.
know? So anyway, I want to thank you guys for helping on that. Karen Mullins and others were good about helping me to get the word out and get support and whatnot. And again, we got those emails, we got those phone calls, we had people come up, and it worked.
Awesome.
Good.
Awesome. So, as a local leader, this is, I think, one of our last questions. Then we'll hop into our final segment of the shout out, shut down. So, as a local leader in what can be a swing county, how do you see Pinellas playing a role in the 2025 or more the 2026 elections? And what do you think the national and state Democrats should be paying attention to closer to the ground here?
First, let me say that the Democratic Party has gone through and will probably continue to go through uh, metamorphic
Hmm.
changes. A lot of youth, persons ages 18 to 25, are registering independent.
Hmm.
They're upset with the Democrats and the old guard way of thinking and doing things the same way. And they certainly don't want to be a Republican, because it is the antithesis of what they have been learning
Right.
for the last 12 years and what we've been teaching and what they see, and they are more aware and more alert. And the accessibility to social media allows them now to hear and see things from other parts of the world that, prior to, especially when I was younger, we didn't have access to
Right.
that unless we saw something on the news. And so for the Democratic Party, I believe focusing not on this is what the Republicans are doing, and you voted for this person and he's in office, versus the elections occurred. We see the repercussions of those elections. The opposite of that is working on things that affect you, whether you are Democrat or Republican.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare affects you, whether you're Democrat or
Right.
Republican. Public transportation, education, employment, economic development, housing, all of those affect people no matter what party you belong to. And so here are the issues, and here's our platform to work on those. Now, I do believe, and I'm not just saying it because I loved him, but I do believe, even back with President Clinton and some of the things that he was able to do and move forward, coming on to President Barack Obama, and some of the things that he was able to put in place that were unwound when
Hmm.
the current president was in 2016. Joe Biden tried to kind of hurry up and get those things back. And the ones he was able to get back, they're now being rolled back. And so that's what lets you know that they were good for the people.
Exactly.
Those things were good for the people. And, sometimes individuals, if you are not of black and brown skin, you may feel like, oh my God, if we allow this to happen, they're going to treat us the way that they've been treated. They're going to be mean to us and all of that. No, ma'am, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
What I have time for, though, is to share with you that we were persecuted in free labor for over 400 plus years. It is evident that there's no stomach for reparations. However, we certainly can demand that moving forward, people be treated with humanity.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so that conversation versus the pointing the finger. The other thing I think is messaging, but not always referring back to 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but right now.
Yeah.
Our younger generation, some of them don't know the history. They don't know about Bayard Rustin and the issues that occurred with him, and linking his sexuality to Martin Luther King, and
Right.
trying to make that an issue during the civil rights movement. So it kept people off their kilter. And that Bayard Rustin really was the person, he was the architect behind the speech that was done at the
Hmm.
memorial. And so some people don't even know about that. Some people don't realize the real rationale behind Pride.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is more than a parade.
Yeah.
The
Mm-hmm.
MLK Freedom Fund banquet and all, more than a banquet, more than a
Yep.
parade. And so since they've not learned that, and since we have some people that are doing everything they can to prevent us from teaching them that in a public setting that's supposed to be educational, we have to now look at, well, what do they know?
Right.
Who do they know and who do they look up to that have done some things that have shown some civil disobedience that have been able to move us forward? So they remember George Floyd.
Hmm.
They remember Tiana Taylor.
Yeah.
They remember those soldiers that have been mistreated in the military. They remember the young lady who was just killed, unfortunately, by another soldier in the military. They remember, they remember Miss Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah.
They look at her because she's
Hmm.
entertaining and she's a firecracker, but she speaks what she knows. But they'll relate to her because she's present. And so we've got to do more with pulling present moment into present tense
Hmm.
so that the issues are relevant and current. So that when we're talking to them, they won't say that was way back then in the 1950s and the 1940s.
Right.
Well, not very much has changed. As a matter of fact, these times are trying to revert back to that, but they've never lived that. I was born in 1964. I remember the green bitches in downtown. I remember the lines. I remember not being able to cross Central Avenue after dark. I remember all of that. But I'm 60 years old. So I've shared those things with younger people, but then I also share with them, okay, so what is it that you can't do right now?
Right.
that people who don't look like you can do.
Right.
Hmm.
And so I think focusing on those things will help us move the needle so that our younger generation and even our seniors will see we're fighting for the things that they fought for, but we're also fighting for a brighter future.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We have with the Stonewall Democrats, we have a saying that your vote is your voice, and it
That's
truly
right.
is.
It
If
is.
you, anybody who's listening, if you're unhappy, if you're not liking the way that things are going, you have every right to get out and change it, but you have to get out and change it. You have to do the work. You have to join these community organizations, the different nonprofits and things like that. Find something that you're interested in, work towards it, and that's how we all move forward and get out and vote.
Please. I mean, when I look at the number of people who did not vote
Yeah.
this last election, or the number of people that said, well, I'm not going to vote because it's not going to make a difference anyway. But those are some of the same people that pick up the phone and call me
Right.
because their child couldn't get into school. They now have to pay back student loans, and they'll be put in the credit bureau, and they're garnishing their wages, or they just found out that they can't get Medicaid anymore. They're not eligible for Medicaid anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people contact me because for whatever reason they didn't get their Social Security checks, and with the new rules and laws, you don't just walk into the office anymore.
Right.
And so for some, not all, but for some, the first thing I say is, "Did you vote in the last election?"
Right. Yeah.
What does that have to do with it? It has everything to do with why you're coming to ask for help from me right now.
Exactly.
And that doesn't mean I'm not going to help them, but I want them to see
For
the
sure.
correlation. So I agree with you 110%.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the questions that we had. So I think I want to ask you, do you have any final thoughts before we move on to our last portion here?
My final thought is, unfortunately, yesterday the Senate very narrowly passed the BBB thing. I'm not even going to call it what they call it.
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to call it the big buffoonery bill.
That's it.
That passed barely, narrowly. Some amendments were made, but they were amendments that the average day citizen is not going to be able to relate to or see. I'm glad that they got some things in related to climate control, but that has nothing to do with putting bread on somebody's table
Right.
Hmm.
or lowering the cost of things for them or making sure that they have health care. So, people aren't going to be looking at that. They're just going to look at the fact that it passed the Senate. So now it's going back over to the House. I want to encourage anyone who is listening to this to please, even though they are Republicans, put it on the record.
Yep.
Contact, email. You don't have to talk to them, but email Senator Scott's office. Email the young lady that took over from
Oh yeah.
that was our state attorney general. I'm sorry,
I
but
can't
now she
remember
took
her
over.
name right now
Yeah,
either.
and that's so sad when someone's
I know.
not so important that you can't even remember their name.
Yeah.
Moody,
Moody, there you go.
Moody, Senator Moody. Yeah, certainly reach out to Kathy Castor and email other people who are not representing the state of
Yeah.
Florida and let them know. Don't talk in generality. Say this is how passing this bill will affect me.
Yep.
Hmm.
Will affect me. This is how your dilution of services affect me, my family, my children. Because it's not over until it's over. And yes, we voted for those individuals to be in Washington D.C. and to stand for us, and they did. They did. They just wrapped it up earlier this morning, and they are tired because they were up all night
Right.
putting in amendments. But the Senate, the Republicans, made a change in the ruling. We've always fought. I think they should do something with the filibuster. Our Democratic leadership never wants to do it, but what happened today?
Exactly.
The Republican senators did that, which changed the threshold for the number of votes they needed because they could not get it over the finish line with what they
Yep.
had.
Yeah.
So we've got to stop playing it safe. I mean, we may not have wanted to add more people to the Supreme Court. Quite frankly, I think Joe Biden should have did that. You know, we always want to, make sure that our gloves are soft. They take the gloves off on us all the
All the
time.
time.
So they don't care about, well, if we do this, this is what they're going to do. They're going to react to it. We've got to start caring about that so much and think about how will this impact right now and what can we do to give people relief right now and do it.
Absolutely.
Do it.
Absolutely.
For sure. For
Absolutely.
sure.
I love
That's
it.
my thought.
I love it. Well, that does bring us to our final portion and our final segment of the show, but it's a fun segment. We like to have fun here on the show. Sorry about that camera shaking. Um, this is called our shout out or shut down segment. So our audience knows we can either shout out something positive, someone positive, or we can shut down something or someone negative. So this week I have a shout out. Normally I have a shut down because I tend to live in the headspace and TikTok gets me. But I have a shout out this week, and that is for St. Pete Pride. This past weekend was absolutely incredible. I want to say thank you to every single volunteer that came out and marched with us on Saturday during the
Yeah.
parade, that stood in the rain and the heat and just marched and chanted proudly. Everybody who came and helped set up the tables and the tents at the street festival on Sunday, the amazing love that was felt this past weekend that I've been missing in some ways. I felt it all this weekend, and I am so incredibly thankful for every single person who came out and showed out during St. Pete Pride. So that's my shout out for the
For
week.
sure. That's a great one. And you kind of stole mine,
Fabulous.
but I also know I'll have to think. So, Dr. Renee Flowers, why don't you go next?
Well, I have a shout
Go right
down.
ahead.
Um, I have never supported, even back in 2016, when immigrants were being arrested and even the children put in cages like animals. I worked at the time for Gulf Coast Jewish Family and Community Services. Charlie Crist was a congressman at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and they had what was called undocumented youth. And at Gulf Coast, we got funded to care for those children who were separated from their parents
Mm-hmm.
and try to connect them. Our job was to connect them with a family member here in the United States, and then, of course, to start working on the paperwork for them. And that just stuck with me, to see babies separated from their parents and then parents shipped back to wherever they were fleeing from. So to have the governor of the state of Florida think that it's okay to have some military tents
Mm-hmm.
with cages, because those are cages,
Mm-hmm.
bunk beds, cement floors, placed on what was an old airstrip out in the Everglades. Um, to think that's okay to house people like that. I don't care for whatever length of time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's inhumane.
Mm-hmm.
We are in the height of hurricane season. Those tents will not withstand or withhold anything. And
Not
we
at all.
also know that storms can tilt. The last hurricane was supposed to hit us head
Yep.
on, but instead it went south. So we got tore up pretty good. We got those outer bands, 120-mile-per-hour winds. And so Sarasota, Manatee, and whatnot got the balance of it. But those things shift on a moment's notice. There is nowhere for them to go
Nope.
to get to safety. Today, I was sitting in my car. It was 86 degrees inside my car. Can you imagine being out in the Everglades
No.
with the tent over you in metal cages, cement floors? There is no AC
Mm-mm.
and there were no fans, at least not from the pictures I saw that were presented by the news.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I see people getting sick.
Oh yeah.
I see, unfortunately, people passing away that may have medical conditions. Um, and then to hear the president of the United States make a joke about if they get out, they can run, but they'll get caught by the alligators, or they'll get caught by the boa constrictors, or the other animals out in the Everglades. That I already knew he didn't have a heart.
Right.
That just took it to another level. I want you
Yep.
also to know that you didn't see a sewer system out there. So when they use the bathroom, where is that going to go?
Right.
And the Everglades is considered a natural preserve.
Mhm.
Yep.
And you're talking
Yep.
thousands of people. And there's no telling how long they will be held there. I just think it is incredulous. I think it's inhumane. I think that for a country that was built, inventions and construction, all the things that make us great was made great because of the complexity of the communities that came together to make it
Yeah.
great. No one person or people did it alone. And to now see the way that these people are being treated, even those who are here legally, some who have been
Mhm.
detained legally,
Mhm.
and then for him to want to make an exception for the farmers because those individuals aren't going to work. I wouldn't go to work either if someone could come out there and arrest
Right.
me, even if I
Right.
do have legal papers.
Right.
And the number of construction projects that have stalled because the workers have walked off the site.
Mhm.
Mhm.
The number of restaurants that are having trouble keeping up because
Mhm.
employees are not coming to work. We should not, at this point, call ourselves the land of the free and the home of the brave.
No.
We should not say that we
At
are a
all.
beacon of light.
At all.
Um, we have, he has, not we, he has alienated our friends in the international community. He has alienated not have all of the various cultures that represent the United States of America. Um, I could not sleep at night.
No.
I don't even want to think about me being that type of person. And I pray to God that I never have a hardened heart like that.
Sure.
Now, for individuals who may have committed some crimes and things like that, yeah. But to give a quota of 3,000 people,
Right.
you want to round up
A
3,000
day.
people a day? Um, and so now they're out trying to make a quota. If you are doing your job and you're doing it honestly, take the mask off of your face. Our United States
Tell me.
military doesn't go in with
Tell
masks.
me.
Our sheriff officers don't come out with
Sure do.
masks. Now, yes, when we have undercover stings, yes, they do, and I know why. But they don't come out with masks. I don't know it for sure, but I really think that some of those people that were hired by ICE are the January 6th participants, merely on the way that they handle people. Because if you are an officer, you have been through de-escalation training, you've been through, there's a modicum to the way that you handle yourself. So even if I'm going to knock on your door, I'm not going to just flashbang your house, send a drone in through a window because we're there for someone who wasn't even at that
Right.
address. And it was a
Mhm.
mom, her newborn baby of a few weeks old, and a toddler. And when they bust the window, all of that glass shattered on that newborn baby. The mom, the baby, and the toddler are down. Like, what do you want? Who are you? And then you handcuff her. So what did you do with the children while she was
Right.
handcuffed until you were able to verify? And even some people that they've been able to verify who they are, they arrest them anyway.
Mhm. Yep.
They
Mhm.
arrest them anyway. It is so inhumane. All I know is, and everybody may not feel this way. So let me say I'm so sorry to those who may hear this. But I do believe in heaven. I do believe that there is a hell. I don't want to be in line in front, behind, on the side of any of them because I don't want God to get me because he's getting
Right.
them. I don't want to be anywhere near. I just know that you can't treat people that way and expect good to come
Right. No, you're
in your
exactly
life.
right.
And I'll close it off by saying this. Everybody knows that Melania is not here legally.
Oh, see,
Mhm.
it's not incorrect
That
though.
part.
His two buddies, and then Elon had questions about how about his visa as well. So that it is it's so hard. I was looking up and I've been trying to find a place to like go help protest this because it's not it's horrifying. And you're right, in the middle of hurricane season, in the middle of the Everglades, like what are you absolutely thinking? Nothing but torture is what it is. So yeah.
It is. It is. It's dehumanizing. But guess what? We endured this for a time,
Mm-hmm.
but not for all
Exactly.
time.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I guess we'll finish up on my shout out, which I've been thinking of while since Christian took mine, but that's okay. I think what I'll do is I'm going to shout out, also related to St. Pete Pride. I'm going to shout out all the organizations that joined up with us and worked for marching. And so like Hillsborough LGBTQ caucus, the Pinellas Hispanic caucus that came out, and the Pinellas DEC that worked with us throughout all that. So it was, I know there was, I'm pretty sure we had a few others, but I'm blanking on it now. So just shout out to everybody.
It was huge,
Yeah,
300,000
and there were
people.
300,000 people total that came to Pride. So just shout out to everybody for supporting the LGBTQ community, especially in all these times. So that's basically, yeah,
Absolutely.
that's where we're at. That's my shout out and shut that. So that brings up brings us an end to our shout out and shutdown section.
Oh,
Thank you so much for joining us, Miss Flowers, Commissioner Flowers. It's absolutely been such a great opportunity to talk to you. You've given us such a lot of great points and everything to think about. Thank you so much for joining us.
thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for working out the time
Yeah.
and making yourselves available for me at this time. I really appreciate it. Thank you for what you're doing in the community, despite all of the challenges, all of the roadblocks that people attempt to put in the way so that my community, African Americans, people of color, the LGBTQ plus community, to try to keep us at odds against
Right.
each other. But we're not buying that story anymore. And I think that
Mhm.
has brought us closer together and allowed us to fight on substantive issues and to make some inroads. And I think that's what we need to continue to do. And please know that I'm available. Reach out to me, give me a call or whatever. And I'm happy to help, support, do what I can, where I can, however I can. So I'm just glad to be here today and to share this time with you guys.
And people can find you on
Absolutely. Thank you
Facebook,
so
right?
much.
At Renee Flowers on Facebook.
Yes, they can find me on Facebook as Renee Flowers. They can find me in TikTok as Dr. Renee Flowers. They can find me, yep, they can find me on Instagram as well. So I'm on all social media platforms. And I'm also on the little butterfly thing. That's fairly
Oh,
new. I
Blue
just
Sky.
signed up for that.
Blue sky.
Blue Sky, yes, I just signed up for that one, so they can also find me on Blue Sky. And I try to do reels, I try to do updates, I try to do postings to let people know what's going on, what the thought process is. But I also go on and I try to give inspiration too, because it's so much negativity. I got to give you something that gives you hope. So yeah, have them go in and check me out.
Absolutely. And don't forget to
Absolutely. And thank you.
go ahead, Christian. Sorry.
I just want to say one thing before we jump off. Thank you for always, always being a champion in our corner. It
Thank
truly
you.
does
Yeah,
mean a lot because you have always stood by us, and the intersectionality between the struggles of our communities is real, and it needs to be worked out. And I really, really appreciate you for always being a champion for us. So thank you.
thank you. My pleasure.
Please remember to like and follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We're at For St. Pete's Sake. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. Maybe leave us a little rate and review too. We would love that. We'll be back next week with more stories from the people doing the hard work to make our community better. Until next time, for St. Pete's sake, keep pushing for change.